enjoy it. It's fun. I get to create and have, do silly things and hang out with some pretty good people and make wine and the way I want. And yeah.
And the other thing is the flexibility too. As mums to young kids, having your own business certainly allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of,
scooter in the corner, motorbike in the other.
Kerri Thompson and Marnie Roberts are two firecrackers with an enduring love for shaking up the Clare Valley's wine offering and going their own way. KT couldn't have known less about making wine when her journey in the industry started all those years ago. In fact, she needed a fake ID just to do her first tastings at uni. Little did she know that a fruitful career was in store. Marnie is the winemaker, owner, creative director and chief bottle washer at Matriach Rogue, and apparently she does occasionally feel overworked. She's all about working with growers to create something exceptional and different, and she does it all while being a mum, just like her mate Kerri. Here's KT and Marnie.
Welcome to Healthy Minds, Healthy Vines, the wellbeing podcast for growers, proudly brought to you by the Wine Grape Council of South Australia and sponsored by PIRSA. Hosted by award-winning mental health podcaster Callum McPherson and wine columnist for The Australian, Nick Ryan.
Marnie, you're a Mildura girl. Can you tell us about what life was like growing up?
What's showing?
Cats in the eyes, yeah.
What was...
Tell us.
What was the question?
Shh, Nick.
We're off to a good start here. Just tell us about what life was like growing up.
Grew up on a block. Essentially, they're called blocks over there. When I came to Clare, they called them vineyards and I called them blocks, and I got put in my place. So grew up on it was an apple and citrus farm, and then they got ripped out, and then dried fruit, and they got ripped out, and then wine grapes, and then they got ripped out, and the place got sold for water. So we grew up sort of just, watching mum and dad work and work and work. So I got a good work ethic from them. Mum worked a couple of jobs and dad worked on the land. But Mildura was great, 20 plus years ago, probably a bit more. It was a small country town. You could walk down the main street of Mildura and you would always know someone, and I was third generation. So my nana, then my mum and I, we all, grew up in Mildura. So it was fantastic. And the river was a big, important part of it. Skiing every weekend when I was 18, of course, then the pubs, and it was just fun, a lot of sport, a lot of everything, and it was great. Beautiful place to grow up.
And mum and dad put you to work too?
Yeah. So I learnt to drive on a tractor, of course, and dad had an old Falcon ute with the column shift. I don't know what that's actually called, like the old whatever.
I think it's called the column shift.
Column shift, but I don't know what flavour.
3 on the tree.
Yeah. But yeah, so no, I drove the tractor, and I had a brother who's 2 years older, and he used to throw the dip tins and stuff when we had the dried fruit, and I'd avoid it as much as I could. Sometimes I'd be caught snoozing under an orange tree or whatever, so I wasn't a big fan of it, and I didn't really have to do a lot. Mum and Dad were pretty good, so education was important. But
were you dreaming of a life that didn't involve working the land?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I wanted to be either a policewoman or in a band. I don't know. I had no real. When I left high school, I was a bit lost, to be honest. So all I wanted to do was travel the world. My mantra from my mum was work, travel, marriage, and that was what I grew up with. So that's what I did, and I was just a bit of a, free spirit, bit of a loose unit at times.
Any musical talent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Marnie is one of the finest spoons players you'll ever have the misfortune of hearing.
Enjoy a few bevies and you never know what'll happen. Yeah.
And can certainly bust out a tune on the guitar too.
Yeah. So, but nothing that would warrant a record deal.
And has a drum kit in the winery.
Yeah.
Let people know. And
that can take you around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's been even mini impromptu performances from international rock stars in Marnie's winery on the drum kit.
Yeah. No, who do we have?
Dave Faulkner from the Hoodoo Gurus came to taste some wine and ended up.
I just happened to place a guitar and a drum kit at the end of a row of barrels.
Oh, yeah.
And he came, and it was someone from the Flesh Bones, I can't remember. Anyway, and they just, got up and it was in tune and
so
they
just
played
lured him.
Just looked at him, oh, it's a guitar, bizarre. And Oscar was there, and he signed Oscar's little purple acoustic guitar and stuff. So music's always been a part of our lives. So we've got all the instruments at home. So I don't know, it just comes with wanting to create things, I think.
And KT, the Riesling Queen, where did it all start for you?
Well, I grew up down the bay, so Glenelg girl, and really close family. My mum's side of the family had a farm up in the mid-north. They still own and operate as sheep and wheat farmers to this day, called Wunderbar Lamb. And so spent a lot of time up that way growing up. And
did you like it more than Marnie?
Oh, it was just, it was weekends away for us. It wasn't work. It was fun because, there was extended family that we'd be hanging out with and grandparents and all of that sort of thing. So it was just spending time with family for me. Never for a minute thinking that that's where, I would end up living and working. But, and for me, heading into the wine world was completely out of left field. There was nobody from my family involved at all. But, for me, it was more the opportunity that the wine community sort of presented. I wanted to travel to. I was interested in science and, but also at the same time studying art and art history and language. And so, it was just like this really weird mix of sort of subjects to throw at the dartboard. And someone said to me, oh, you should go and check out Roseworthy because they have science-based courses with a bit of a twist, and went out there and just absolutely loved it. And so started studying the enology degree in the early 90s. We were actually the last year to go through Roseworthy before it ended up at Adelaide. So by the end of our studies, we started doing some subjects at Waite. Yeah, so I feel pretty lucky really to have had that.
So what's the wine awareness you've got walking in there day one?
Absolutely zero. No, it was so funny. I remember, so the university helped me get a fake ID so that, because I was only 17 when I started. I mean, it wouldn't happen now. And just so that I could go to all the tastings along with everyone else. And I was the youngest in the group. And I remember being on a bus in the first week, it was sort of like that O-week situation thing. And we're going on a tour, we were heading to the Barossa, and people were talking about, what we're in for. And I remember turning to the person next to me and saying, oh, sorry, what do you call this thing? Shiraz?
I love it.
So I had no idea, absolutely nothing. But, it was more the environment and knowing that I could travel the world with, that sort of experience.
Yep.
You learn fairly fast?
Oh, it was absolutely sink or swim situation, there's no doubt. It was different. It was a different time. The early 90s, there weren't, there were very few females in the group. It was, and obviously being a lot younger than the majority of the crew that were in the course. Yeah, it was, and I was still learning how to drive. On one hand, I've got my grandpa driving me out to uni to drop me off so that I could use the fake ID to go to a tasting, and so, it was a big baptism of fire for sure. Yeah, lots of fun though.
And did you feel that being one of the only girls?
Yeah, I definitely felt pretty isolated in the early time. But that was also very much a straight, for me, it was sort of the first venture out of home and just a completely foreign environment. But I, soon found my peeps and sort of, you sink your teeth into it, get stuck in.
When did it start to, fall into place? When did you start thinking, actually, there's something here that...
Well, it probably wasn't really until I was working in Italy that really happened. I mean, I was lucky enough to work for Greg Trott at Wirra back in the day when Trotty was still around, and that was a really beautiful environment. But at that point, I was still sort of, it was a job, and I was having a bit of fun, but it wasn't until I was in that environment in Italy where, we were I was being more exposed to great wines of the world, and I suppose a deeper understanding of the concept of terroir and how, great wines are made in the vineyard and all that sort of thing.
This is a Leolena.
Yeah. And that was really one of those absolutely life-defining sort of moments where it was like, oh, okay, now I know that I'm on the right path. Yeah, for sure.
Marnie, how did you end up in wine where you had aspirations of dreams of being...
The coppers wouldn't take her.
Had to get out of the country.
Not with that record. Yeah.
Without a record deal.
Yeah, that's right. That fell through. So anyway. Yeah, I guess I got a job in a winery in Mildura, a bulk winery. My first vintage was at Baronga Hill. I think they did about 75,000 tonnes. And I worked in the lab, and it was party. I was on night shift most of the time, and I thought, how cool is this? Getting paid heaps of money. Again, in the 90s, just sort of fell into it and wanted to save up just to travel. That's all I wanted to do. So for some reason, they kept me on after vintage, and I did another vintage there and managed to save enough and did an internship, went over to Sonoma in America, and that was my first exposure, I suppose, to actually getting excited about wine, same as you overseas, I guess, but I still just was using it to travel. It was good money over vintage, and that's all it was. And it was, I went out for a Mexican lunch with the winemaker in Sonoma. It was at Buena Vista, and it was Judy Merlich White. She's actually the winemaker that's on that Sideways movie that serves the guy No Bloody Merlot. Anyway, a little claim to fame.
Bit of trivia there.
Yeah. A little bit of useless facts. And she sort of said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, just want to travel. And she said, you could probably do this as a career. Sort of me being 21, just wanting to travel, didn't realise at the time she was actually probably offering me a job. And I said, oh, no, I just want to travel. I bought my Subaru wagon. I want to drive, down the coast. And the other girl I was staying with, who was from New Zealand, she ended up then taking her out the next day and gave her a job for a year and a half. I was like, missed that one.
Right.
The queue there. But that's okay because, I travelled. And then I started to do a year in vintage in Australia somewhere, and then I'd go overseas, and I just travelled for about 3 or 4 years, but always thinking eventually I would just do something. And again at Hazel Grove, Nick Hazelgrove and Paul Dunwich probably sort of said that, maybe I should think about studying. Still didn't, just kept doing jobs, and then just sort of worked my way up, went back to Mildura, worked my way up to winemaker, and then studied through distance because I wanted to stay in the industry. That was really hard work. I worked for some pretty tough people in a corporate life. But
did you find you were going to hit a ceiling without getting the study behind you?
Yeah. And I did in a way, but it was also, I still saw it as a way to get out of Mildura, I suppose, the study bit. Still didn't really, I'm not a great student. I ended up just doing, I think, 4 years of the 6-year degree in the end. I actually still don't have my degree. Just things happened in life and probably can't really focus on exams and things like that. But yeah, it would have probably accelerated things. I wouldn't have had to work as hard and really push it.
Yeah. And so you're going back when you talk about, starting in the lab, and when we're talking to Anita in an earlier episode, she sort of found that as a young female winemaker, it was sort of almost like you're the young girl straight into the lab.
You can't lift a hose.
Basically the only way you could get a foot in the door back in the day. And
it's very rare to get cellar jobs, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And so that all of my early work was always in the lab, which I actually really loved because
it's the hub.
Yeah, you'd see all the action, all the samples would be coming through, you'd get to taste everything that, no one else was sort of having the opportunity to taste with whoever else was, on at the time, whether it be night shift winemakers or whatever. But yeah, it was basically just the only way to get an offer initially.
Didn't have to work in the rain either. So that was
No,
pretty
it was
good.
actually, it was
Sweet.
quite
Turn the heater
civilised
up.
actually.
Yeah, it was fine with me.
Yeah, which was all well and good until, there was crazy stories like the old days at Wirra when they put Mrs. Wiggly the cat in the freezer, came across the cat in the freezer.
Was it Wiggly-less after that?
Yeah, it was, absolutely, yeah.
Did the cat unthaw? Or?
No,
No,
the cat
no.
was just prior to, so that they could work out where Mrs. Wiggly was going to be buried. There's actually, I'd say we have a rosé called Mrs. Wiggly, after the dead cat that we found in the freezer. Anyway, I digress.
Delicious.
Did you find the cat?
I saw the cat, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. Haven't
You
seen
put the
it.
cat in there, didn't you?
Well, I wasn't getting paid enough.
Not
for
going to
that.
get a confession. Haven't seen a frozen cat.
Counts
since,
as
I guess.
mog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's good that you learned to sink or swim early on, because then you ended up at Leasingham and there was something similar that you had to deal with there, because you sort of ended up being the boss fairly soon or something like that.
Yeah, it did. It happened very quickly. I mean, I took a role as the white winemaker, I think it was, initially, which took me to Clare in the late 90s. And then it was only a month or so after that that the general manager at the time resigned, and of course, just being the sort of opportunist, I suppose, very much was not going to give them any option to not give the responsibility to me. And so I just put my hand up and said, oh, look, don't worry, I'll look after it, I'll manage it, which at the time was
How old were you then?
hilarious.
Ballsy.
Yeah, I was 23 and, had gone from only ever working at like wineries that were sort of a few 100 tonne up to, we ended up doing 6,500 tonnes there, which, obviously is nothing like Marnie's experience, but it's all relative when, you the resources that you have.
Bite off more than you could chew at that time?
Look, I was really fortunate to be working within that environment at a time where, there was a lot of support given to young winemakers, and there was a lot of sort of creative opportunity given to us as well. And it was at a time where we were really we had the support to experiment. And so, and I learnt pretty quickly that you got to surround yourself with, with a good team. And I was lucky that there were some really great people in that environment. So
Must have given you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, look, it did. It also, it's the whole fake it till you make it, really, isn't it? You
Still doing it.
Yeah, you just never sort of give anyone an opportunity to say no. So yeah, it was an amazing experience, and had it not been for that experience, I certainly wouldn't be able to, be doing what I do now. There was great rigor in that environment. There was, and we had some fairly tough taskmasters back in those days. So yeah, and I suppose I often felt like you just let the wines do the talking. So,
I guess there was a degree of autonomy in that, Leasing was running as its own unit, but it's still part of a
that's
bigger
right.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there were some really wonderful people within that group.
Yeah, it was a particularly good time in that business.
It was.
Who was going through the place.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Cat. It was.
Yeah.
I know, the cats are we're a problem.
Yes.
And Marnie, what about starting to build your own thing?
Yeah, look, it was never intentional. Like much of the decisions in my life are accidental. It's, I worked at Kerri Hill and working under some tough taskmasters there as well. So, and I guess I just wanted to branch out and make a wine initially just for my family, and just, as everyone does, a grower just wants a Shiraz to sell to their mates. Nothing has been, there's no such thing as a business plan, which is a bit of a problem sometimes, but it's more opportunistic and just, following where it goes. And made these wines, and then they were a small batch, and I've always had an interest in alternative wines, which comes back from Mildura days. It's the Alternative Wine Show. That's a big influence on my life, and there was a few of those things popping up, that I wanted to try and just make, and it was just to keep me interested, really. So you get to a point where it sort of all becomes a bit, in a bigger winery, it all becomes a bit of a blur and it's a bit boring. So made these wines and then thought, now I've got to sell them. So I came up with a name, and now I've got to make them. And at the time I left Kerri Hill and was working for Claymore then, and I was processing at Napstein, which was really great. So working with some cool people there that would just let me go on site and do what I wanted as well. And then a bigger company took that over and wouldn't allow you on site anymore. So I basically went back home and said to my husband, Matt, we either call it quits or build a winery. So he said, oh, yeah, to me, that means go for it. So if it's
not explicitly
not a no,
anything else is a yes.
So any yes is like, yeah, go for it. So Stephen John was selling all his equipment and his bits and bobs, and so we went and bought his crusher and a few other things, and I borrowed the basket press from Napstein when I needed it, and leased a shed. I was down the street and I said to Craig Thompson, do you know anyone? I just happened to pass you. I said, do you know anyone that's got a shed? So I'm building a winery as I'm just walking around. Do you know anyone that has a shed? And he's like, oh, I'm thinking of building a shed. And I said, yeah, right. When are you going to do that? And he goes, oh, I don't know. It depends. Like, what do you reckon? And I said, well, if you build a shed, I'll lease half of it. How big's your shed going to be? And he goes, 1,000 square metres. And I said, it's a bit big to kick off with, but I might lease half, a bit adventurous. And he goes, oh, yeah, right. So this was in August or something of 2017. By January 2018, concrete was set, the shed was built. I moved in my 10 or so barrels, a tank, a crusher out the front, put up a few racks in this massive shed, and that was it. And, bought a few tubs to ferment in and just went for it, just made it up. And then, it's just sort of gone from there, and now we've got our own property and our own shed, and the brand's, quite biggish, I suppose. We do a lot of contract processing for people, and I think it's just diversified. I've brought my contract processing world in with me and make wines for growers and other people, and I think that's how you survive. It's just diversify your business and be open to those opportunities. So
bite it off and just keep chewing. If you actually stop and sit down and try and plan it out, you probably wouldn't do it.
Well, I thought about a business plan. I started to write it, but as I'm writing it, I'm like, I've already done it. Not sure, So as long as the bank was happy, the house was paid off, we had food, and that was pretty much it. I'm not trying to. I know I'm never going to be rich. Pretty much the wrong industry, but I enjoy it. It's fun. I get to create and have, do silly things and hang out with some pretty good people and make wine and the way I want. And
And the other thing is the flexibility too. As mums to young kids, having your own business certainly allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of,
scooter in the corner, motorbike in the other.
Exactly.
Homework. Here's a barrel.
Your kids are very, adept at turning wineries into playgrounds.
Playgrounds, absolutely.
They're good at plunging ferments.
Yeah. Yeah, Oscar gets a friend every year. I always get like a half a ton of something, and they foot stomp it after school. So, and they love that. It's great fun. So
put them to good use.
Yeah. I mean, they're terrible at it because they're light as a feather and just basically hopping around on it. But just keeping kids involved, like it is just a big playground sometimes. So it's great.
How many kids have you both got?
Just the one.
Just one.
Around the same age too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
And how do you manage all that? Because you're wearing different hats. You've got your own businesses, your mum's as well.
Fly by the seat of your pants.
Absolutely.
What's going to happen today? No one knows.
I'll ring Marnie and say, what do you know about this thing
what
happening
is this
at the school? What's going on today? Yeah.
Is your kid going to swimming? Do you reckon they could walk down together? Yeah. What's this podcast? I'm not sure. We'll just go. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, because my kids are at school with, with both theirs as well. And I think particularly in a small winemaking community, but say during vintage as well, it's just like there's just kids going off in every direction with, whoever can take them.
The village really steps up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's nice. You perhaps don't get that in the city these days as much.
No, I don't know. Like, I think the wine community, especially in Clare, I find, like, I've working around, I don't know, there's something about Clare and this, we're sort of a little bit further away, but we all do cheer each other on and support each other. Clare's got this really lovely inclusiveness, I guess, and we do know each other's kids and we do know what you're up to.
Yeah, it's still very much a village feel.
Yeah, and supporting each other. So, yeah.
And family's been very important too. There's no way I would have been able to do all of this without the support of my family and some really good people around who have, particularly during vintage when it's basically chaos. I was going to say organised chaos, and then you go, no, actually, it's pretty chaos. Well just chaos.
Oh, shit, it's 3:00. Oh, school, damn it.
Yeah.
What am I doing with them?
Been very lucky.
So were you even able to talk your parents into coming?
I did, yeah. So mum and dad, my brother's in Brisbane and I'm in Clare, and I had to commit to Clare and promise mum and dad I wouldn't move for 10 years. And they moved, so they, born and lived in Mildura their whole lives, and they moved over to Clare about 3 years ago.
Still complaining about the cold nights and
apparently
cold
it's
mornings.
going to snow yesterday and mum can't feel her hands and, whatever. Just get some more wood. But that's been really helpful for us. So, because my husband was a FIFO at the start of building this business as well. So the village became extremely important. And then now it's great, My husband and I both work at the winery now, and we'll be crushing and realise the time, and we can just call it mum and dad and go pick them up, and, it's great.
It's handy.
Mummy, what are you cooking for tea? Got any food? Can I have that milk?
So you're putting them to work now?
Yeah, go
Bit
shopping.
Of payback.
Yeah. It's like being 18 again. Never moved out.
Yeah, we've been talking in previous episodes about succession plans and things. This is almost reverse succession.
That's right.
You're dragging your parents into the business rather than them handing it
us. Come to Clare. So, yeah.
And Katie, why did you set up shop in Clare?
Well, I was managing Leasingham, and as part of that, we had a significant number of growers that we were managing, and so at one point there was about 55 growers that ranged from having maybe an acre up to over a couple of 100 acres. Got to know some really good people, and was really drawn to I've always just been really inspired by the wines. And so had an opportunity to work with a couple of different vineyards in the Watervale area, one of which I'm still working with, and some wonderful people. And so I've always really loved working collaboratively with growers, and that was a big part of my time in McLaren Vale, big part of my time at Leasingham, and so just had a really great opportunity there.
So tell us a bit about Wines by KT.
So I started my business back in 2006, and always with the intention of focusing on sort of single vineyard, celebrating the specific part of the world that that lot of grapes came from, but very much about working with the people who sort of looking at life from a similar direction. And so I started with only a few different wines, a couple of different Rieslings, and then it just really grew from there. I was really lucky to have had the opportunity at the time to make wine out of the Skilligalee winery with the Palmer family, who at the time owned Skilligalee. And so I had a winery to work out of and sort of base myself out of, because that is another difficult thing, particularly in the Clare Valley at the time, that there wasn't a great deal of opportunity for sort of contract winemaking or smaller places that you could work out of. And so I was really lucky from that respect. And so from there, it basically just grew from a couple of different wines to now way too many.
Never too many.
And yeah, and about half a dozen different growers that I'm working with now, in terms of different families from across the district. So yeah, over the 26 years that I've been in Clare, I've sort of always been drawn to the Watervale sub-region specifically, but now I work, with vineyards from all over the place. But yeah, I've just always been inspired by the wines. Love it.
And you're still involved at Skilligalee now?
Yes. So very fortunate to have sort of had the opportunity since the Palmer family sold the place back in 2020, and the Clausen family, who've now purchased the place, asked me to stay on. And so now managing the viticulture and winemaking for Skilligalee as well, whilst also being able to, because I was basically just claiming squatters' rights. And so
Stick around.
Exactly. So Simon very kindly allowed me to stay on, and honestly, it's been such a exciting project to be a part of, and it's a place that's really dear to my heart too, having been a part of that winery for some time. And so it's just lovely to see the place being celebrated and loved, and great team of people as well.
So there's a fantastic new energy at Skilly. I mean, where do you want to guide that energy? I mean, there's a lot of work going on in the vineyard.
Yes.
Especially.
Absolutely, yeah. And as I said, I mean, great wine's made in the vineyard, and so we've really made a commitment to giving the place some TLC through a number of different projects. It's a beautiful site, and we've started to get heavily involved in the Eco Vineyards program as well, which I'm sure many of the crew that are listening to this would have heard of too, which is now a national project run by Dr. Mary Ritalik, and so we've really enjoyed getting involved in that, obviously for the benefit of soil health and what it's doing viticulturally, but also just from the engagement of all of the crew. The staff love it, and the team, from some of the guys that have been there for 20 years who are now re-engaged, reinvigorated. It's really lovely to see, actually, and all of these new ideas, and people that would sometimes just rock up to prune here and there. Now they're rocking up into the office. Oh, have you thought about planting, X, Y, and Z, and doing all this? It's so good. We've absolutely loved it. So, yeah, I mean, regardless of the benefits to soil health, which is first and foremost why we engaged with the project, what it's doing for morale and stuff.
There's a people benefit
absolutely,
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking to Richard Leask about the rise of regenerative farming.
Yeah, well, and he's obviously, really at the forefront of that work.
So how have you been able to build that in to what you do? And is that I don't imagine that's a quick process.
No, and it requires a lot of patience, which I don't really have a lot of, to be honest. So,
and money.
Well, precisely, yes, yeah. And so we've really sort of just chipping away at it and doing as much as we can within our team. And lots of native planting, lots of ground work, ground cover, and essentially the whole philosophical approach.
How important is it to share that work that you're doing at your place with the region generally? Not everyone wants to go and do exactly what you're doing, but how open can you be about what's going on? And again, not everyone can probably do it as quickly as well, and it is a lot more man hours. It's a lot more. It's a more laborious process, but there's so many benefits, as I said. But recently we held a
regional catch up for the Eco Vineyards program, and so many more people this year. I feel like there's a lot more groundswell, and then you start talking to people, and I mean, it's obviously just a very old school way of farming, but you know, you hear some growers that you would never have thought would have been on board with that philosophical management process, and the fact that, you know, there is that much more of a groundswell is super exciting.
What is it that gets people over the line?
Well, look, you know, at the end of the day, I think for me, it's very much about wine quality, you know, grape quality and resulting wine quality. But for grape growers, you know, I think in the sense that climate change, I mean, a lot of vineyard in the Clare Valley is 100% dry grown. We have to do everything that we can in terms of building up soil health and you know, as custodians to the land that we're currently working on, everything that we can do to ensure that it's, you know, here for the long term. Times have changed.
There's also that. There's also the commercial point. Like the growers need to have another box ticked to be able to sell their fruit. It's, you know, they've got to stand out. And so if you've got, you know, SWA and your Eco and your all that, true. A winery is going to be more, you know, they'll buy your fruit because if they're SWA certified, which we're going through now, then the benefits of that is on selling that with, you know, especially Norway, Sweden, you know, you have to be certified. That's got to start from the soil, the fruit, the vineyard. So there's commercial benefits as well as the, you know, feel goods.
So have you guys been doing some work on that too?
We don't have, we accidentally got a vineyard now, but yeah, but we'll rip those out. Where's
Marnie's developing a vine grubbing system built on forklifts.
Yeah.
Took one out the other day with a forklift.
Yeah.
Probably didn't want me saying that.
I drove the forklift. We've got a vineyard around the winery we've bought, and it's a bit old and it's been eaten by termites, and the soil is dead. So we want to rip that out and work from the soil up, so there won't be anything planted for a while. And I don't really believe in having our own vineyards because, coming from my background as well, we support the growers and work with them. So we convert their vineyards, and we do invest money in other people's vineyards with 5-year deals and things like that, and on-sell their fruit. So yeah, the vineyard around us will be pulled out, and I did drive the forklift there and just shove the tines under a vine just to see if I could pull it out, just for something to do, and you can't. They just snapped off, and now it's a mess. But husband will fix that. So yeah. But the SWA certification is really important, and also for accountability for us and making sure we're doing it all properly and things like that as well. So it also helps with contract processing. More people want to process and have that stamp on their label as well. So yeah, and like you were saying before, there's nowhere really to process for those little amounts. So, you know, I wanted to set up a winery, which we have, that we can process anything from 500 kilos, sometimes less, up to, you know, 10, 20 tons. And that allows those growers that want to make a little batch for themselves to come in. It is a pain in the ass, but it is also lovely because they just rock up and they have some ownership in the winery as well. Yep. And they do come past. I've had, when we first bought the property, one of the growers and the wines we make for, he just rocked up and just started mowing our lawns and doing the edging just because he just wanted to help us out because we were, you know, our first vintage, we were really pushing it. But it's nice. They rock up and, oh, what are you up to? You know, sometimes they just want to have a chat, which is okay. And you're like, oh, can you grab that and can you just plunge those for me during vintage? And they do. They love it. So it's sort of become a little community within a community as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the beauties of being smaller, isn't it? To be able to work, you know, with families, with growers.
Yeah. Well, there's always, you know, I mean, one of the benchmark examples of that's always been, you know, your relationship with Bunny and Eva Piglitas, and it's always put up as a, you know, as the example of how to do it. Just tell us about how that relationship works.
Oh, look, they are like my quasi-grandparents, really. And so back in 2006, when Bunny gave us a call and said, you know, I don't have a home for my fruit anymore, and I said, don't ring anybody else. I'll take it. I'll commit to it now. And that was sort of the catalyst as to, starting up KT, to be honest. And we've just been mates ever since. And I mean, they are a unique example because they are just so dedicated to their grape growing, wine growing, the whole cycle. They have been farming that land since the late 60s. They know each vine, sort of by name. And so we have enjoyed a really lovely friendship as well as a working relationship. But, I've always sort of subscribed to that theory that, if you've got to ride the waves together. So, as an example, I remember standing in the vineyard under umbrellas in vintage 2011, and at that point, some of it, because when I first committed, I was only taking the Riesling and a little bit of the Shiraz, and another company was taking the Shiraz, and so I harvested all of the fruit from that vintage, even though it wasn't necessarily the best because of the seasonal conditions. But then, the other part of the vineyard wasn't purchased by the other company because, they said there was too much botrytis there. And
they could walk away.
Yeah. And, in a larger company, I understand that there's, those benchmarks that sort of need to be ticked, but it's such a short-term relationship. And, I've just been really lucky that we've always sort of looked at life from that direction, and we've always sort of rode that wave together. And, they've been loyal supporters of me, and I feel like I've been loyal supporters of them too. But yeah, it's like working with family now, so very special.
When did you two meet?
Don't know, actually.
Were we drunk?
Probably. I don't know. I think it just kind of happened.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, just the village of Clare, I suppose.
I think we had an event together. No, I don't know. I think probably like
obviously
there was drinking involved. Yeah,
I'm thinking seed, sitting at the bar, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. We just kind of crossed paths and same interests and probably school as well and everything else. I don't know, and it just kind of worked. But Kerri and I like to do a few events together, especially at Gourmet.
Yes,
it just is easy. She's the smart one. I'll just fill in the gaps, and our wines complement each other as well.
They do, yes, very complimentary. Lots of fun. I mean, obviously, there's always a good laugh with Marnie, and it's just lovely to do things collaboratively, isn't it?
Yeah, supporting each other as well, and just trying to sell the booze.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
having a friendship like yours, though, where you both do something similar, and there's not heaps of you doing something like that out there, and you can bounce off each other and I guess pep each other up when things get tough as well. There's a big benefit to knowing each other.
There are some conversations where it's like, hey, Kerri, can I pick your brain? Or, this has happened. What do you think? And then it's like, yeah, nah. Or, yeah, take that advice on. Or even just like, this wine, working by yourself in a shed and getting a cellar pallet, you've got to pull resources around you. So I have taken, wines to Kerri and said, what do you think of these? And just bouncing off each other and working really, within that without intruding or anything. It's just really nice to know you've got sort of someone that you can just say, hey, can you just help me out a bit?
Is that the greatest danger in running your own businesses, becoming sort of too absorbed in it and losing perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah. I find sometimes standing in the shed, I mean, the whole get the fruit, make some wine, now I've got to sell it. I've got to create a brand. I've got to do something, and you sort of get wrapped up in your own business and your own winery. I've stood in the shed and just racking wines and just getting quite, what am I going to do with this? And then not paying attention, I guess. So, yeah, I think you need to keep communicating, need to network, need to come to things like this, keep in touch with association, go and do the membership things, go to these eco tour vineyards, and get out of the shed, basically.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
also
important.
get out of the headspace a little bit too at times. Yeah, because
You can talk yourself down.
oh, for sure,
Yeah.
and just constantly, when you are on your own, you can second guess all of the decisions, and so it is lovely to, have a colleague and friend that you can, have these discussions with. And I mean, making wine is quite a physical thing too during vintage, and I mean, the
That's why we're so fit.
the old bod doesn't bounce back as quickly anymore.
It creaks a bit
So,
more.
I was like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
just let's have a wine and have a chat. And,
Yeah. So you
and have a
cleaning you
laugh.
can put up with.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how important is honesty then in that process too? There's no point in just sort of trying to soften things or.
If it's shit, it's shit.
Yeah.
You've got to be.
Got to call it in a nice way.
Yeah.
You don't flip a table and go, "What have you done?"
Yeah.
But I think you can.
Say, sorry, I think it's shit.
Yeah, and justify yourself.
Yeah.
And that's that honest conversation, or be really diplomatic and it's probably your best.
Have you thought about this?
Maybe. Yeah.
What about?
So I have. Yes.
Yeah, don't worry. Marnie said that to me on a few occasions in various different events and functions when I'll say, oh, we should do such and such. Yeah, no, maybe not.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Maybe no. But yeah, no, honesty is the best policy with a smile. So yeah.
I guess that's the beauty of the respect that you have for each other, though. You can say that stuff and you actually listen and know that you know what you're talking about.
Nothing's in offence. It's, it's supportive. It's great. So, and I think as you get older too, in a place where we're at, as you get older, you sort of filter through people anyway. You sort of get rid of the dickheads and the people you don't really trust, and your circle gets smaller, but you can take the hits.
Yeah,
and
it's
and
smaller
also,
but stronger.
yeah, absolutely. So, you take it with a pinch of salt, and if you're too sensitive, then I don't think the wine industry is probably for you. So, and I think coming the way we've worked our way up as well, you do have a bit of a tough exterior. I have been called many a wonderful thing. Some of it's, you're like, wow, achieved that momentous, you're a bloody mole, and just like, good on you. That's your opinion off your pop. So yeah, you just, I don't know, take it as you can, and to have someone be honest with you is really good, because you could be off on a tangent and then gets in a bottle some of the wines and you think, what have I done?
And I mean, we are also, like, our wines are very complementary because we both have different specialties. I mean, Marnie's the queen of the alternative, and like, that's sort of not necessarily my world, and so when we do have our events and functions and tastings, and it's lovely, I think, for everyone to come and experience a lot of different things. So yeah, we're really lucky, actually. It's lovely.
Have you got some things you do for self-care? You're spending a fair bit of time isolated, you're under the pump a lot of the time, juggling lots of things. Do you specifically have things in place where you need a bit of a break, you need some space? Is that always just having a drink and trying to have a laugh, or is there something else there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we get together, we do have an event sometimes, and you can take it off. But also personally, like, it's not so much just drinking. It's actually spending time with, I think, the family. It's really important for both of us. I love to go back to I need water. I've always got to go back to the river or the beach, mainly the river. And that's where I can just downtime, get back to where I want to be, and my headspace is really good. So, I am quite a neurotic person, and there is a lot happening, a lot of compartments open. So I find that just getting away, bush, is great for me. Things like the Clare Wine Show lunch is great for me. It's around my birthday, and I like to let loose. And hopefully I never win a trophy, because the speech would just be dire. And it's great just to hang out with my friends. So yeah, you do need that vent, or going around and having tasting with your mates and someone cooking tea or just random stuff.
Yeah, circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, you cooked once.
I think, like particularly in the wine world, the sort of natural reaction is to share wine, and obviously sometimes we can share a lot, perhaps a few too many.
It's no such thing.
And so I've had to really be quite conscious of prioritising, some fitness stuff and hiking and, getting to know the Wine and Wilderness Trail in Clare and just sort of trying to have some time away from the business because, I just think that's really great for the headspace and the creativity space as well.
The job being so physical, can that put you off going and doing extra exercise because you're like, oh, well, I'm working hard anyway, so...
Oh, no, not at all, because,
I don't think
to
so.
be honest, outside of vintage, most of the guys would be saying that, well, she does sit on her backside anyway, so, like...
Oh, yeah, you've got staff.
Yeah. It's pretty important. Yeah, very important. And, yeah, I just, I've also had to learn to sort of say no to a lot of things as well. I mean, it's wonderful to be asked to, judge at wine shows and do lots of sort of marketing and promo travel and all of that sort of stuff, but you can't do it all. Yeah, I've was always in that yes world, yes, I'm just going to keep going. Now I've had to really prioritise.
Call that burnout.
Yeah, for sure.
And you had to develop that skill of saying no as well, because if you're used to saying yes, it can be a bit difficult, or were you a natural at it?
No, I mean, there's a lot of the whole family sort of thing too, going, if you say yes to one more fucking thing, so yeah, there was prioritising that family as well.
Just an awareness within yourself as well. I think having a good sense of humour and being a bit of a dickhead sometimes is
also helpful.
Also very helpful. Yeah. Don't
Just
take it too
sometimes.
serious. Just sometimes. Most of the time. Yeah.
Especially when you're with this guy.
Yeah, no, he's
Don't blame
bad
me for
influence.
any of it.
Come
Don't blame
on.
me for any of it.
Marnie, do this. Okay.
Marnie's more than capable of being a dickhead all in her own.
It's true. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think, and having young kids as well, that's your priority. I mean, why else would we do it?
Yeah.
So, kid it'd be great to be rich, but it's also so we can spend time with the kids. Everyone thinks having a business is great and it's the dream to work for yourself. It's bloody hard. Like, it's a lot of work and it's constant, but it's very rewarding. And so you work hard, you play hard, I find. So when you switch off, you switch off.
But try not to play too hard.
Yeah, well, time and place. But yeah, it's that balance. And it's not always right, but, it's done. And as you get older, you kind of just go with the flow a bit as well. And you do get a bit more stubborn and a bit more, no, I want to just go home and get my trackies and chill. So.
Look, your businesses are both in really good places at the moment. Where are they headed? What's the future for Matriach and Rogue and for Wines by KT? Are they generational? Are they evolving? Are they going to change? Where do you want it to be?
Well, I think at the moment, with the new property and having the winery fully set up, there are a million plans for that property. And the idea is to make that work for us. And it is just Matt and I. So, cash flow is king and that'll dictate what we do. But the idea is we want to, another shed. Sheds, you can never have enough shed. We've already outgrown it. We want to put a few vines just in the corner of a property because I want some Cabernet Franc in the brand because I don't have enough wines. Why not? And the rest of the property we want to be sort of birds, bees and bugs. We want to get some natives in, want to have some accommodation, tiny homes there. I really want the property to work for us. And then, when I get to 60, look at it and go, cool, let's sell it. Am I ready yet? I'm not even assuming Oscar's going to take it on. There's that's entirely up to him as he gets older. So my future is just keep the business going, keep the money coming in, enjoy it. When it's not fun, drop it.
Go.
So what will I do? Have no idea, because this is all I've done. I actually don't know what else I would do if I wasn't making wine.
No,
Start that band.
Start that band.
No,
Right?
don't.
Nick, I was great on the spoons.
No.
No, I wasn't actually. I was pretty sure. It's fun.
Kerri?
Yeah, look, I feel like I'm so lucky, you know, for me in this position in my career to have the opportunity at Skilligally and to be able to sink my teeth into a project of that nature. You know, essentially running a place like I own it anyway is so fortunate, so exciting, with all the plans in the world as well. And you know, for us it's and with KT, with that in mind, you know, I have the good fortune of being able to focus on, you know, sort of keeping things pretty small and pretty tight and sticking to my lane. Doing things as well as I can, you know, really focusing on quality as opposed to, you know, needing to sort of grow for growth's sake. So
does that stimulation of everything that's going on at Skilly, does that, you know, that flows through to KT as well and sort of rejuvenates sort of all that? You're seeing that?
And I am lucky to be working with, you know, leasing another vineyard for myself, and, you know, so keeping things small and high quality. And so, yeah, I just feel really blessed to be able to go into the next 10 years or however long it might be, feeling like I can really enjoy the moment and aim for all the good stuff. So, you know, I got into this because I loved, you know, science and travel and the creative side. And, you know, I feel like I can sort of keep going, having fun.
And what's the future for Clare?
Well, if we're involved,
Heaven help us all.
yeah. I don't know. I think Clare has, I do feel this, it's energised. Like I feel that there's this energised vibe in Clare. There's a lot of new projects going on. I mean, the Skilly thing, us and the property out there, there's just, everyone seems to have really lifted. There's like the next generation's almost come through. I think, you know, if you look at the family brands like Barry's and Pikes and even Paulette's and that, the next generation's come through. They're starting to really put their footprint on things, and that's flowing through to some cool little brands and cool things happening, a real sense of place. So I like where Clare's heading. I feel that's, when I left Mildura, I never thought I would feel like anywhere's home, but I do feel like Clare's my home. Like that's where I'm meant to be, and I think the future looks really interesting and good. There's a lot of varying things going on. I mean, the Watervale Hotel is a really interesting thing that's brought a lot of people from outside of Australia to the area as well. There's a renewed interest, I suppose. So, no, I think we're in the right spot in the right time, and we're not totally broken yet. So, you know.
Yeah, and I think the Clare Valley is really poised to capitalise on people's drinking habit changes, in the sense
Style,
that, you know, more medium frame, more savoury, you know, finer detail. And we've always made wines like that. And so, you know, and more of a village feel, I think, as some areas and wine communities keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and as the urban sprawl sort of, you know, continues to flow. I mean, Clare is still this really lovely, you know,
farming community that makes wine.
Exactly.
We're still getting discovered. I love new people coming to Silverdoor. Like, oh, we've never been to Clare. This place is fantastic. And you're like, yeah, it is. Tell your friends. So, and it's, you know, they love it. They just, we'll be back next year. And that's happening a lot. So.
Sounds like you're right where you need to be.
Absolutely.
What advice have you got for women joining the industry?
Well, look, nowadays I feel like it's a lot more supportive, and there's a number of avenues and projects to sort of be a part of more mentoring situations. And so, you know, I would absolutely encourage people to seek out those opportunities, because, you know, I really wish that was a little bit more, you know, available, like when we first started out. And all of the women winemakers that I know are absolutely, you know, happy to support and encourage and you know, be a part of those. So, you know, it's very much about seeking out those opportunities.
Yeah, I think the mentoring is really important. And there are, you know, from, I guess, the female perspective, there's a lot more women in more managerial positions across the industry, not just winemakers, but, you know, viticulture and GMs and things like that. And there's this, they are really supportive, and the mentor program that is in place is really important. And just, yeah, put your hand up and I guess for young women, do get into it. It's really interesting. It is a fantastic industry to work in, and you will find your place. Might not be the first or the second or the third place, but there is a spot for everyone. So, yeah, probably, yeah, get in, have a go. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Get stuck in.
You will clean a lot. Tanks, hoses, pumps. Yep. It's pretty much all you do for the first 5 years.
Don't say that. No one will do it.
Just destroyed all that last 5 minutes of
we were so inspired.
really good motivational stuff.
I was just like,
you're just going to be
you're just clean.
just cleaning.
That's male or female though. That's the start of the industry. That's all you
right,
do.
yeah.
But if you can get through that, then it pays off.
Oh, look, it's worth it. And you do. Like, yeah, you learn as you go, and the people you work with are fantastic. So from small to big. I loved working in a big winery, by the way. I thought that was great just to kick off with, because you learn all the other skills, you know, logistics and how to work with people, HR and all that stuff. The winemaking's a little side hustle. But, yeah, big wineries are great for working everything out and time management and control.
Yeah, well, from many of the best people running small wineries
come from
are
the biggest.
doing so because they've got big winery experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So my advice would be, starting a big winery. And you've got everything.
Yeah. Fuck up some more easily, sort of amortise.
Blend it away.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening. Head to the Wine Grape Council of South Australia website for links and further resources. This is part of a bigger conversation, so feel free to share this podcast with your mates and look after yourselves. Cheers.